Them F2. I told you to F2 more.
If he scouts a Protoss that doesn't move out and sits on triple Stargate and on 3 bases, yes, go up to 5 bases with a bunch of queens, make 85 drones, and hold down that Corruptor button. Anyway, we'll see what the final series of the day has in store for us. This man came out guns blazing this morning. Can he do it one more time? Our Taiwanese champ, it is nice.
His opponent in the blue, starting at the top left-hand side, is his Rogue.
Look at that coming in, Todd, in the lower bracket of our previous screen. We already talked about it a little bit in our pre-show when we weren't live yet, but Neeb getting the 2-1 dub over Clem. That means that the European champion is gone. Our Oceania champion is gone. Obviously, if Rogue would end up losing here, then our Korean champ would be gone too, because of course Rogue was the GSL champion. That hasn't quite happened yet, but especially Clem going out in the group stage once again of the season finals, that is a little bit surprising.
And that means that Neeb has to go through the gatekeeper himself if he wants to go into the playoffs.
Yeah, Gabe calls himself that, the gatekeeper. I think.
What do you call yourself, Gabe?
A washed-up old man.
I was expecting something a little more complimentary, but
no. I keep it real.
the face of Protoss Mech. Let's leave it at that.
The face of F2 at this point, mate. All right, so Nice is going for the 1 gate fast trend. You guys can see some of the updates coming in from Group D. One final match happening over at ESL_SC2B. If you guys want to check out Neeb versus Heroine, that should be coming up shortly. So far, everything relatively standard here. I believe that second pylon also being on the low ground. How did Rogue open up exactly? Rogue went pool gas or pool hatch gas. Maybe a bit worried he was going to get cannon rushed or something. So Rogue's going to have some very early Zerglings here. I don't think he's going to follow it up with an early all-in though, Todd, by the looks of it, because he's not really mining. I don't think he's going to keep mining gas.
Yeah, but if he would, there'd be a backup pylon at the back. That's pretty nice. No pun intended. If you get those deep power during an attack, that obviously would be pretty bad. Stargate in the wall was going to be started, and then he decided to put it elsewhere for some reason.
I guess he just wants to get a second gateway to complete his own wall off. This is kind of where, as a Protoss player, you really want to get that follow-up scout, because you want to know if Rogue is actually building drones, or if Rogue is continuing building Zerglings and maybe even Roach or something super crazy. Because if that happens, all you want to do is build a couple batteries and you'll be safe and sound at home. This probe doesn't get all the way in, but it does at least see that Rogue is going up to 3 bases. With a bit of luck, it maybe saw a drone or two come down that ramp. So I think Nice is feeling pretty confident here that Rogue was perhaps just worried about being cannon rushed.
Yeah, Nice pretended that he was going to move out with the Adepts, by the way. Like, he shaded those out outside of the vision of the Overlords. And I think he was probably hoping that Rogue would get worried about these guys and maybe overmake Zerglings, but Rogue didn't flinch. Kev, he just has been spamming drones the whole time. And Nice, you know, this was a fake. He just came back inside of the wall. Now he's playing it really safe, adding one more gateway. A Void Ray to an Oracle. I feel like a lot of the time we see the opposites. What do you make of this?
Yeah, the first Void Ray just to clear out the Overlord and obviously help to make sure that the probe can just go up to 3 bases. I think it's not too crazy. I've seen Zest do it quite a few times as well. With a few, I mean very many. I'm happy to see what Rogue's doing so far, Todd. This game, he's not doing something weird, like making a big amount of links, but not the amount that can actually really accomplish something. It just kind of felt like he was hurting his own economy. All of this, to me, looks a little bit cleaner. We can see that Rogue is 5-6 workers ahead. 4 minutes into the game. I mean, the other game, we were 5.5 minutes in and he was still behind in workers. So this all just looks a little bit better on Rogue's side.
Honestly, I'm very impressed with Nice today. Like, that first match, again, he wasn't off of like some crazy only. It was just him, like, that defense in the first game, I was ready to call it. I was like, the supply, look at it. And no. I was like, no. I'll just buy a little bit of time, get the bigger army eventually, and with enough Archons, I can just barely hold. And Rogue, this was one of the rare times the mass roach of his didn't work. And he looked very disappointed actually at the end of that game, kind of shaking his head and everything. So now he has a real opportunity at revenge. Maybe play a little more passive in the first place, doesn't need to do any real big attack unless he's fully confident those will work.
Yeah, let's not forget that earlier today, Nice pretended he wanted to play double Stargate on Romance's side, but then actually cancelled the Stargate while it was almost done and just headed into those Zealots, Archons, and Immortals a little bit earlier. This time there is a second Stargate going up in the main base, and I think it's for real. And I just really wonder what Rogue's gonna do about it. I'd love to see as soon as the lair is done and Overseer head into that main base. And then I really just want to see Rogue go up to 5 bases immediately and get something that's actually proper good against Stargate units if Nice indeed does something similar to what he was doing on Oxide, and that is play triple Stargate Fleet Beacon.
So many players have gotten really good against a lot of these attacks that can be thrown their way. That's going to be a cancel. No! Oh, he's going to try and pull back, but he's going to die without getting the cancel. I feel like he might just sack it and get the cancel on the hatch.
Yeah, that's actually... Sometimes it's better to just close your eyes and accept that you're going to lose a Void Ray, but at least you're going to get the cancel. Because now you didn't get the cancel, you tried to save it, but it was already too late. Like Cole would say, don't save that Void Ray thought. He doesn't want to be saved, don't save it.
He wants to go down, doing his duty. Good soldiers follow order.
+1 air weapons on the way. Robotics facility is close to finishing up. I wonder if Nice is going to drop a Robo Bay immediately. But if you compare this to earlier today, where there was a Void Ray getting a cancel on that fourth hatchery, also killing the drone and then getting away, this is all just a bit better that Rogue is doing. And this time you do see the Spire go down immediately. Rogue is just playing a lot cleaner, and look at that. Those are the 82 drones, Johan, the 84 drones even that I was talking about. I honestly think he can just overrun. Like, you just hold down that Corruptor button, and you're going to be able to overrun the defensive target units of the Protoss.
Yeah, Rogue's he's even adding 5 more drones. This guy's about to be crypto-rich here, keeping all his tech options open. He's got the Spire, the Infestation Pit about to finish. And that creep spread really hasn't been pushed back much at all here, if ever. Like, Nice is playing kind of, like, as you mentioned earlier, like really, really passive, staying on his side of the map, spamming air units for now with those Void Rays, trying to scout how he can, and he's dropping the Fleet Beacon just before the Robo Bay finishes.
Yep, he just wants to go into a couple of carriers, but I think he's going to have such a hard time surviving, because if I'm Rogue, you just take the gases now, he's got a monstrous economy, and then you just start flyer attacks immediately, and you hold down that Corruptor button, and I actually think you can really start trading. He's making 11 more drones, so he's basically going up to 100 workers, still starting pathogen clans. I honestly do think it's important that if you get close to like the 100 drone-ish mark, you want to be very adventurous and active with your Corruptors. You don't want to max out on 100 drones, because that obviously means that if you do nothing, and the Protoss does nothing, and the Protoss maxes out, their army is going to be a lot bigger than yours. So as soon as he gets like 15 plus Corruptors, I want to see him go out and about and try to pick off a couple Void Rays.
Even though Rogue wasn't, he's not on 10 gases, he's only on 8 right now. I think he's already starting to spam that static defense. So, you know, we saw him go up to 100 drones, but immediately after he started making a lot of these spores, which he will continue on getting up until you get, I mean, sometimes you can go to some ridiculous numbers, you know, like 30, 40, 50.
I don't think that Rogue should be afraid to fight this. He's got Corruptors coming out. The Queens are here too. These Void Rays are going to have to get recalled immediately. Rogue was not afraid. Does he get a Void Ray? No. A little bit unfortunate. But what he does have now is Hive Tech, is Vipers on the way, 6 Infestors on the way too. The only thing he really needs to is a couple Overlords.
Yeah, I think the goal is always to go for the perfect mix here, which sometimes can be hard to get. It really depends like how many of those games you've played, but those guys, you know, they're always playing on the ladder. I'm sure they've got plenty of experience in this kind of longer games. I mean, for Nice to even try and go for that style, that goes to show how confident he is trying to play this type of game here against a Rogue who... Rogue is the highest earning player of all time, right? With over 900,000.
I don't know if he's still on top. Yona has still been adding something to it, but yeah, it's probably a close race. Rogue, Maru.
It's the race to a milli this year, I feel like.
Yeah, there's a good chance one of them is going to get there. Rogue is going to get an Ultralisk Cavern too. We've obviously seen Ultras be pretty useful because carriers are not particularly good against Ultras. It takes a long time for these target units to take it out. Void Ray is obviously a bit better, but it's really hard to keep your Void Rays alive. If there is a decent Corrupt account, there are Infestors and Vipers at the same time. Earlier today, the splits on the Void Rays against Parasitic Bomb were very good. But I gotta say, Rogue also dropped it on very exposed Void Rays that were either furthest to the right or furthest to the left. It becomes a lot more difficult as a Protoss when it hits one of the center Void Rays.
And now he's searching Neural Parasite as well and starting some melee upgrades and Carapace as well for his grounds. Ultralisk Cavern finishing. If you're the Zerg here, you can just literally handpick exactly what you want to make, but Nice is playing so thirdly that it should be pretty straightforward what you need to. You should be getting usually a lot of Corruptors. Keep on spamming some more of the Spores. We're up to a lot of them. Let me check. We've got 32 Spores.
Corruptors coming in, picking up a carrier. That's a sweet little pickup. I do believe 1 or 2 Corruptors went down in the process, but obviously with the economy that Rogue has, he can do this all day. Yeah, it's 2 Corruptors for a carrier. Obviously, that's a lovely trade on the Zerg side of things. Nice is kind of rushing into the Mothership. That makes me wonder if we're going to see one of these crazy Mothership recalls down the line. Feels like it's going to be hard since Rogue pretty much sees this entire side of the map. I think Rogue has played a lot better, but I still feel like he's making it hard on himself, you know? I think there's an easier way to deal with this.
Maybe he just wants to play it really safe.
Yeah.
Like maybe he feels like he really underestimated Nice in their previous series. He was just like, oh, I mean, I'm just gonna spam roaches and attack this guy and he's just gonna die. I mean, I'm Rogue, right? And he's Nice. Nope. Actually, that didn't go so well for him at the time. So this time, he's really respecting his opponent, maybe even too much, like playing really passive, adding a ton of spores. Maybe he's just happy flexing his macro muscles, taking a ton of bases. He's morphing 8 Broodlords now, and I think 5 Spines as well. There's so much static defense.
I almost feel that he goes into the Brutes a bit early. Like, Vardy really questioned his Broodlords on Oxide, and that was kind of against the same build that he's currently facing, where the majority of Nice's units are flying. Like, Nice is getting ready to transition into a ground army, and against anything on the ground, obviously the Broodlords are going to be great, but it's really important for Rogue that he always has enough anti-air, because that is a scary amount of carrier stud, and at this point we've got 10 Corruptors. What are 10 Corruptors going to do against 9 carriers? Nothing.
And 9 Void Rays, yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna get taught respect. That's what they're gonna do. Yeah, usually you go Broodlords because you want to counter Archons on the ground. You want to counter High Templars. You don't want them to come in, storm everything, feedback potentially on Vipers. But there is none of that. Nice is just... He's traveled back from the future. He was like, yeah, I've played this game before and I've made the normal army and you countered it with Broodlords. I'm just gonna go pure air. You're gonna make Broodlords for nothing. And it's gonna go real bad for you. The thing is, how do you go about fighting when there is so many spores and he's not actually going into Tempest at all?
I mean, Spore Crawlers are great, but +3 air weapons for the Protoss player is honestly better. And obviously air units can fly, so you can kind of avoid the Spore Crawlers. We've seen that in a couple of high-profile games. I think it all comes down to the spellcasting. If Rogue does have perfect spellcasting, an Abductor too, some parasitic bombs, maybe fungal, neuro. I don't know if does he have neuro?
Yeah, he researched
yes, he does. So yeah, obviously with perfect spellcasting, anything is possible. But I still think Rogue is playing a really dangerous game here, Todd, because I actually kind of like this Protoss army. Unless Nice waits too long. You don't want to give the Zerg time to catch up in the air upgrades. Kind of when you have +3, you just want to go ahead and fight. Because these Corruptors, the only Corruptors that are out there, they're gonna melt. Rogue just made 10 more drones. The man is addicted to Spore Crawlers.
Yeah, he keeps making drones and then adding a ton of spores. He even added a nice bunch of spines. Like, you don't want to overmake the spores necessarily. You definitely want to mix in some spines here and there in case there is gateway units coming in. Both players getting all of their upgrades. What do you think the spine and spore count is right now?
I don't even want to know. 48 apparently, because I can see it on the screen. 48 Spore Crawlers. I think this is the scariest phase of the game for Rogue. Mothership does get abducted. We did
your
see
favorite
a
moments.
Yeah, that's a good old -400 in the chat. I know that you guys are going to do it. But I think this is the scariest moment. +3 air weapons is finishing up, and I think this is where Nice should not be afraid to fight, even if there are a couple Spore Crawlers, because your upgrade advantage will never be bigger than it currently is.
Yeah.
So this is kind of it. This is really where you want to go pedal to the metal, and let's fight.
I think he's just worried of, like, if he runs into a big group of spores and then they're all shooting at the time, it's like not the ideal place to fight. And you would think, like, okay, where is there a position where the wall of spores is not that good? But if we go, like, from top to bottom, we can see that literally everywhere on the left-hand side of the map, Rogue just has a million spores and spines in position. Like, it's so hard to attack into this, to pick one spot. Maybe a recall in the main will be good, but there's also a lot of spores around the top near there.
Yeah, I would have loved to see Nice grab one of those Void Rays, clean out those Overlords in the top side of the map, and then maybe indeed try to get that Mothership into the main base and then recall. But you know, at the end of the day, spores are scary, but the upgrade advantage was never going to be bigger than it was a minute ago. Now even Rogue is going to get +3 flyer attacks. I believe Carapace is already done, +1 Carapace that is. It's not going to get any easier, Johan, let's put it like that.
Ooh, well, the carry gets abducted here. It's going to go down very, very quickly. Resources lost. Nice has lost slightly more, but there's actually not much that has failed this game, considering we're 15 minutes into it. It's been a pretty passive game for both players.
It's been an incredibly passive game. We had that one little carrier pick-up where 2 Corruptors went down, and now another carrier did
Come on,
down.
after all the draws we had in the Euro, this is what we're going to have here. At least we're guaranteed penalty shootouts, at least. There's going to be a winner in this one.
You say that. We could be in for a long one. It is romanticide after all. And both players starting to build up quite a bit of a bank. I'm a bit sad to not see Nice push the issue harder. Like, Spore Crawlers are scary, but let's not forget what happened on Oxide. He fought in range of like 6 or 7 Spore Crawlers.
Yeah.
That didn't make the difference at all. At one point, Rogue had like 10 to 12 Corruptors. As Maynard would say, that's not dang! But yeah, the longer you wait, the higher that Corruptor count is going to get. And eventually it's just going to get harder and harder to win a fight as the Protoss, in my opinion.
Nice is adding 7 more gates here instead of his main base. So he only had 7 up to this point. I think it's nice to add this amount. Like, I think 14 is a good amount with the economy that he's going to have to reinforce potentially into the fight, or even go for warp-ins across the map, because that's the thing about Spores and Spines. Like, yes, they're going to help out, they can be good, but against upgraded units, they fall very, very quickly.
At this point, obviously, there's no supply to do any of that, so it kind of all comes down to this. The Void Rays are a lot more clumped up than they were on Oxide. And at this point, the Corruptor count is at 26. You remember when Rogue had 10 Corruptors? Oh. I think it's going to be more and more difficult for Nice. 5 Infestors, 3 Vipers against 2 High Templars. But obviously, the High Templars are going to have a harder time to really have great impact because of those Broodlords that Rogue still has out.
What army supply would you guess we're going to reach for both players?
I think eventually you're going to see 155 army supply Protoss.
That's it?
Yeah.
I'm going to see 200, bro.
I hope you're right, Todd.
It is Broodlords working on the rocks here in the center. Rogue didn't overmake Queens, at least. I mean, is that even a thing, really? Definitely feels like they're still always kind of useful to have a good bunch of them. There's 9 of them. 8 Broodlords, 5 Infestors, 3 Vipers. Against this much air, he probably needs more than just 3 Vipers. Like, I've seen Zergs like go up to, you know, 8, 10 here sometimes.
Wow. Yeah, 10 is definitely a little bit excessive, but I wouldn't mind a little more than 3, especially because there are still High Templars. Imagine if they get feedback.
Oh no.
Mothership does get abducted, and Mothership goes down. Obviously, we have a lot of memes about it, as this carrier gets abducted too, but Nice needs to be a bit more careful with the Mothership. He's got High Templars, he has the ability to drop those feedbacks. Neep is an absolute master in this kind of stuff. It seems like Nice is moving around the center of the map a little bit reckless.
Yeah, +3 ground weapons about to finish here for Nice. He's going to restart the Mothership immediately. And Rogue is just happy spreading creep, slowly moving towards the center with Spores and Spines, as all of those bases on their respective sides of the map are finally going to run on minerals and gas. And, I mean, if you can secure the center, eventually that might be the one way to win. And when we see how many Spores and Spines there are, if Rogue could just set up in that location and there is no Tempest to really threaten him, another Abduct on 3 carriers. Yeah, Rogue's really going fishing here.
Yep, and he's definitely finding what he's looking for. The only thing that Nice has been storming are the Changelings. He's going 5 more Stargates. Obviously, he's got a lot of money in the bank. You know, the danger of having like 8 Stargates is that sometimes you queue up 6 carriers and 2 Void Rays, and then you legitimately have like 40 to 50 army supplies stuck in your Stargates.
Yeah.
And that's obviously a bit tricky too.
The Dark Shrine, man. The 19 minutes Dark Shrine. When you're already almost maxed out. I wouldn't mind seeing a Prism eventually. Like I said, like upgraded units are great against Spines and Spores. If you can sneak a Prism inside of the main base of the opponents, and it's, you know, almost exclusively on the Broodlord army, doesn't have much of that mobile army. One big warping of Zealot DT could very quickly take out the Hive and even some of the tech buildings of the opponents.
But I think we need to have a fight for that first. Nice is so stuck on his army supply. He's been maxed out forever.
Well, considering the rate at which he's getting abducted, maybe we don't need to get a fight. He just needs to get abducted like this over and over, and then he's going to have some free supply.
A couple of Void Rays get abducted. This is going to rebuild them immediately. It's a Spore Crawler count at 104. The man has 104 Spore Crawlers. I've seen a lot of Spore stuff, but I don't think I've ever seen 104 He's actually gonna be blocked, man. His queens are not gonna be able to move. They're gonna be surrounded by spores. And he's building more. What's happening?
Just gonna cover the map in spores. I mean, when you play this type of game, very often you're gonna have a surplus minerals compared to how much gas you're gonna have, so that's a great way to spend it. But you don't want to overdo it. I really feel like when he gets to 150, you know, maybe it would be a time to start chillaxing. Like, you don't really need to protect as well the bases that are fully mined out. So it's gonna be a lot about the center, like I said before. Ooh, the mothership was gonna try to sneak in at the top, and that was spotted by Rogue, so Nice just presses the eject button. He's not gonna go for it. Yeah, Nice is not really achieving anything here. He's just gonna trying to push back the creep, but every time he gets abducted to death and keeps on losing some very expensive units. Lynx found their way inside of the main base. They're gonna start the Templar Archives.
That's actually a nice pickup. 200 gas. There are moments where the gas is really going to matter. I don't think we have reached that yet because they just kind of refuse to fight. This has been a classic romanticide game. I feel like we often have the 20-21 minute TVTs where, other than like a little scuffle early on, there is not too much happening. I mean, Rogue is honestly almost trolling us at this point with 114 spore crawlers. He's getting 6 more. Nice is like, oh, maybe I should get cannons and batteries. Neeb actually always does that, and it does really help keeping your air units safe. Then you can push those High Templars a bit further forward so they can maybe land the feedbacks.
Damn, Rogue's Cloud looks so scary. 32 Corruptors, 4 Vipers. Doing the Overseers, you know, he has 15 Overseers in total. Gets one of the observers. Looking for that mothership, he gets it! Wow, nice aim.
He's got so many Corruptors now that he's almost like one-shotting them. That's a good storm though, a couple of really good storms on these Corruptors. They took a lot of damage. The Void Rays are coming in from the right side. Is this finally the fight that we've been waiting for though?
Yeah, Void Rays finally stepping in here. Corruptors were a little bit hesitant to fight the Void Rays, as they should be. They go for the carriers. Great movement from Rogue. He stayed outside of the range of the Void Rays that were working on the spores the whole time. Now he flies back in. It's time to remax. 9 Void Rays start behind this. Rogue has still to start making units. 17 Corruptors are going to start in the production tab immediately.
Yeah, I think Rogue was a little bit worried that if he would max out on Corruptors immediately, all of a sudden Zealots and Stalkers would show up. In the end, the Corruptors are going to be good enough here, as the Void Rays obviously ran out of prismatic alignment. That was one hell of a fight, where it was Rogue who was dropping supply quick real first. Nice started to lose a few more units perhaps than he was supposed to towards the end of all of that. Nice definitely losing more resources in this game. Didn't hate the way that Nice went about it. He landed a couple of monstrous storms on those Corruptors.
Yeah.
I just kind of felt that this was his moment. I didn't hate it. But
We're about to have 42 Corruptors here. It's time for the caustic spray bonanza to begin here.
it almost felt like it would have been better for Nice to just transition fully into a ground army. He's got pretty decent ground upgrades still. And against a man with 42 Corruptors, I think I actually wouldn't mind spamming Zealot, Stalkers and Archons all day.
Rogue has 42 Corruptors, 7 Broodlords, and get this, 2 Lings. A War Prism in this guy's main base would be so annoying. If you could synergize 2, like one at the bottom left as well, that would be pretty crazy, but especially there's not many spines down there as well. But Nice still choosing to stick with a pure air army, at least mostly. 6 more carriers on the way. I mean, at this stage, where is he even getting the upgrades from the Forge for the ground units?
I think he was maybe hoping that Rogue would go too heavy on the Broodlords after that previous fight, or he did assume that Rogue would remax on some ground units. It almost feels that Nice has been gambling here, and unfortunately for him, he gambled wrong. Yeah, you're building flying units into the guy with 42 spore crawlers. Nice is starting to take care of his own probe, so he's going to make a slightly bigger army. I think it is safe to say that the motherships in this game didn't really have much of an impact yet.
Yeah, 123 spores. The map is basically covered in something that can help his army win the fight against the air, and they did buy quite a bit of time in the last fight as well. Like, they were kind of keeping the Void Rays away, and I mean, with the Void Rays, you can't ignore them and fly over them to fight the Corruptors. Maybe you should have just kept the carriers a little bit behind. Slightly better. That's so many Void Rays, goodness. A Fungal could actually be mind-blowing here.
It's almost sad that he remaxed on Skytals again, because now you're remaxing Skytals into the guy with 42 Corruptors. That's 84 army supply of Corruptors, and the outrageous 128 Spore Crawlers. Now, of course, if you go into Zealots and Stalkers and Archons, yeah, then Rogue is gonna morph a few more of those Corruptors into Broodlords, and that's obviously gonna become complicated too, but Perhaps it's a slightly better scenario than just maxing out on Skytles again. But hey, maybe the next fight goes a lot better. Does he have a single spellcaster now? No. It seems like Nice has just completely given up on the ground. He's like, I know you've got those 7 or 8 Broodlords. I'm just gonna not get anything on the ground. It's all about Skytles, baby.
There's 120 interceptors moving in there, trying to kill what they can. Broodlord's coming in to try and deal with some ground, but there's no ground. Abductions here on some of these carriers. The Void Race starting to get to work, but he's being very cautious with them. And not a fungal lens. He has to be careful not to have that spammed on his entire army, but I think we're out of them for now.
Yeah, Fungal's not that scary. It's Parasitic Bomb that's normally scary, especially for the Void Race. And Rogue spellcasting really isn't all this. It's just there's Spore Crawlers everywhere. So you normally think that eventually we're going to run out of interceptors, right? Well, we had 100 of them, now we've got 35 of them. But the Void Ray count is still very high. And it's actually kind of a blunder on Rogue's side that not a single Parasitic Bomb has gone off on these Void Rays. He decides to start fighting with his 29 Corruptors, and he's got, well, 20 more on the way. I think Nice should have retreated at one point, because this is not the fight you want to stick around. All your carriers are out of interceptors, all your Void Rays are dying. Nice was doing good thought, but this is the definition of overstaying your welcome.
Yeah, Rogue with a resupply here of Corruptors, getting on top of these carriers now. Stalkers are going to come in, but there's so many Corruptors left over, and they're dealing great damage to these carriers, who, as you said, ran out of interceptors. He's gone down to 6 here. What is he doing? You don't have to be there, Nice. Just pull back, recall, do something. Really overstayed his welcome. And now, in terms of resources lost, we're looking at 30,000 for Rogue against 38k for the Protoss player, and he's the one working with less economy as Rogue starts to expand in the center of the map more and more.
And it may seem like Nice is incredibly rich still, but 2,000 gas, guys, isn't all that much. These armies are way more expensive than 2,000 gas. So Nice can perhaps do that one more time, but then he's going to have a very serious gas issue. You guys can see he's nowhere near maxed out at this point, and it's already almost 5,000 gas units that he's working with. It feels like every fight starts off good for Nice, but then he just stays around forever.
Yeah.
And then he runs out of interceptors because there are a million Spore Crawlers. This is a very ambitious forward playing. Snipes a couple of infestors. Good use of Burrow there by Rogue.
Well, he's getting rid of the Broodlords. Almost doing him a favor here, really. Ultras now on the field. Rogue sees pure carry Void Ray. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna mix in some Broodlords and Ultras anyway, why not? And 8 more carriers about to start, as we're gonna have a Nice on 169 army supply against Rogue's 144. Wouldn't be surprised to see Rogue starting to throw away some of these drones here in a few moments, because he's still working with 56.
Yeah.
Feels like a little overkill.
See if he has a place to put them. A little bit of oversaturation here and there. If he ends up taking one of the bases in the bottom, then obviously there is still plenty to mine from there. I mean, this is just outrageous. I almost feel like Rogue is punishing Nice for playing the way he did. He's like, if you want to play like this, mate, I'll play a very frustrating style for you to go up against. And that is where we are now reaching the point where he's once more going over 120 Spore Crawlers. The entire map is covered in creep. This time the Viper count is a little bit higher, Johan. It's 5. I mean, this has been going on for a little while, and obviously there are things that Nice could have done better, but I will still go back to that moment where he had +3. I think that's the moment you should try to fight. Rogue really didn't have that many great battle units at that point. Almost like he gave his opponent time to get a much better army out and way more static defenses and catch up in the upgrades. But the biggest benefit that Skytles has over playing against Lurk is that we can chrono boost out the upgrades as Protoss players. That means you're always a bit ahead on those. They can really make the difference, because carriers with +2, with +3, it changes everything. But yeah, in a 29-minute game, that doesn't matter anymore.
All right, here we go again. Nice, moving in. Usually when he does that, he actually means to fight here. Big fungal lands on all of these carriers. I love how the Ultras are just sitting there looking at the fight happen, like cheering them on. Like, you got bats? Abductions on one of these carriers. Parasitic Bomb was used on so many of them. It's hitting almost all of the carriers right now. Void Ray is very hesitant to go in, but they're going to have to cover those carriers that are doing all of the damage right now. 23 Corruptors for Nice. Is he going to stay again?
Look at these Spore Crawlers, though. There are Spore Crawlers everywhere. At one point, we're going to look at the Spore Crawler flank, and I don't think I've ever said that before, but yeah, I mean, Rogue is maybe losing a couple of Corruptors, but obviously he's got the bank to make a few more of them, and he still has so many Spores to fall back on. Nice is going to try to make a few more Void Rays. Obviously, the initial Voids can't use Prismatic Alignment anymore, So this is where the Protoss player is once more going to lose a lot of units. And he can lose a bit of the webcam. I feel like Nice kind of knows that these are not the fights that he's looking for. Even if he's killing a couple units, it's just not good enough.
Yeah, he knows that Rogue's mining from the center right now. The pressure is on him to keep on attacking and find more damage. Falling to 100 supply or below, it's Rogue reinforcing with more and more corruptors. Forces Nice to tap out and sends him a message along the way. Don't you ever dare to go for mass air or even make a mothership against me ever again.
The motherships did not have the greatest impact. I do still think that it was maybe a little bit dangerous what Rogue was doing early on, because he really rushed into those Broodlords when there is barely a unit on the ground. But yeah, he made it work. He did have at that point, 50 Spore Crawlers to fall back to. And eventually I almost felt that Rogue is like, you know what you did earlier against me? You A-moved me with Sky Toss. Let's see how you enjoy battling 120 Spore Crawlers. And well thought, I don't think Nice really enjoyed it.
He sure didn't. We got an update, by the way, on the other series. It's 1-1 currently between Neeb and Hero Marine on the B stream that's being casted by the magnificent Harstem and Cats, if you guys want to catch that. And yeah, we see the highlight here of when these corruptors started getting to work. A lot of great abducts here. I mean, Rogue was really on point catching that mothership. And yes, you might be like, oh wow, how could you miss it? It's so big. But it's for the Protoss usually to try and keep that on the safe side of things. Playing without Tempest, like, do you think that was maybe also one of the mistakes if you're gonna play that style, or?
I hate Tempest, and I think a lot of Protoss players hate Tempest in general. But yeah, maybe if you go up against someone who turtles this hard, I think if you are Neeb, for instance, Neeb would probably, like, you have a wall of Spore Crawlers, I'm gonna have a wall of cannons and shield batteries, and I will get Tempest with that cool upgrade. And we're like, all right, we're both gonna play the waiting game, but now my units have slightly more range. I just, like at the stay-at-home Stir Cup, I was going ham. When Stats finally is like, you know what? I've got carriers with +2. You don't barely have any anti-air, and they just fought. And I was like, yay, go Stats! And this is a game that honestly brings me back to a year ago, where it's like, all right, big army, not doing anything, and eventually it's like abduct, 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 and it feels like we are slowly but steady watching the inevitable happen.
Yeah.
And I hate that.
Yeah, I do think like some prisms would have helped as well. Because like at some point, like I said, there was 2 Lings on the map. It's like, yeah, you can find some damage in there with some Zealots.
It's very difficult because the entire map is covered in creep, and there is also 42 Corruptors out, right? And Rogue's obviously really good to have a couple
Gravitic
Corruptors
Drive,
here.
bro. Grand Theft Auto, you go around the map real quick.
Vroom, vroom. Vroom, vroom into the main. Now, I think the first time after they had a big fight, and it was kind of a trade, and Rogue remaxed on 42 Corruptors, I almost wish that he wouldn't have remaxed into Skytos and would have gone ground immediately. Broodlords and Infestors are very good against basic Protoss units, but that obviously would have been a better choice. Maybe he was hoping that Rogue was going to transition into ground, and he's like, ha, got you, now I've got mass air again. I don't know, but the TLDR is, when you have an upgraded advantage thought, put it to use, at least try. If it doesn't work, that's okay, the game is not going to end there. But like seeing the upgrade advantage go to waste, it hurts my Protoss heart.
Yeah, it's always easy for us, right? Because we see everything. But I guess in-game, you're kind of supposed to realize it as well. Like, it's kind of standard to be ahead in the upgrades, as you said. Like, you can chrono boost with Protoss. Yeah, I mean, you're just so committed when you attack with air that it's hard to ever be like, okay, well, I'm going to attack now, right? Up until the point, like, you maxed out and you're starting to build a bank that you're like, okay, now I can fight because I can actually remake my army if I lose it. But yeah, I think you're right. You should have maybe been a bit more aggressive. Let's see if either player turns it up here in terms of aggression on map number 2 on Oxide, starting at the top right-hand side, playing as the Blue Zerg. It's Dragon Phoenix Gaming's Rogue.
And that obviously means that in the bottom left side, we're looking at the main base of our Taiwanese champ. He got the job done earlier today. Can he do it one more time? It is Nice.
Can we get one Protoss in the playoffs, Roddy? Can we make the Muslim happy?
What did Neeb lose?
No, it's 1-1.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, oh. I mean, I do think
we could get 2. I mean, it's not looking too good in this series.
Nope. Did get the job done earlier today, but it did honestly feel like we can go back to the early game. It's fun to analyze the final fights, but Rogue's first 6, 7, 8 minutes, they were just a lot better. This time he was ahead in workers 4.5 minutes into the game, while in the other games it was like 7 minutes and he was still behind. He just always stayed behind. He made a lot of units that didn't make a lot of sense. This time the early game was a lot better. We go back to the 4th base where earlier today a single Void Ray got a cancel off, killed the drone. This time that Void Ray actually got picked up and the hatchery survived. So it's just overall, yeah, Rogue definitely cleaned up his opening, cleaned up his gameplay. And it really did feel like he was trying to make a statement. It's like, mate, you play like that? Then I've got this for you. So if I were you, I would switch it up.
Do you think you would make a great coach if you had to coach some of these guys?
No, not necessarily, no. But there's definitely some moments. And I feel like Nice normally is a guy that kind of pushed the issue. Could also be a bit of nerves, right? It's a big moment. And maybe he felt that the game was going all right. Because he's like, I'm going to max out. I'm going to be a rich Protoss.
Yeah.
It's just like, I think if those little opportunities exist, like earlier today on Oxide, that game was necessarily not looking that great because not a lot of things happened. But he just went for it with carriers and Void Rays, and he just A-clicked and obviously got the job done. And here it just felt like he didn't have the courage to pull the trigger when I feel like there was a moment to maybe make some magic.
And sometimes you psych yourself up. Just because something worked last time, you start overthinking things. You're like, okay, if I do this again, this time it's going to be much better prepared and it wouldn't work out. And because you're playing a game of incomplete information, you have to make assumptions all the time. So maybe that's what happened there. And then Nice was a little bit hesitant. He's like, okay, I'll play a little bit slower this time around. But yeah, without Tempest, without any War Prism to attack, eventually when he fought, there was 123 spores out on the map. Like, how was he ever going to win with just attacking into that with Void Rays and carriers? Like, I've never seen 120 interceptors die this quick, Roddy.
It's funny as well, because every fight started, I was like, wow, not too bad for Nice. And then you move a bit further and there are just spores. It almost felt like a Starship Troopers movie scene. Where I was like, oh my goodness, so many things are being shot up and down at the same time. And then you see the interceptor count drop. First rather slowly and then real quick. It's like 80, 70, 60, we're going down. And then they end up with 10. It's like, well, not a lot of firepower left. Let's see what Nice has in store for us here in game 2. He is once more opening up with the Void Ray. Now, after that game, you may be like, Nice, just do something completely different. I do think that this is just kind of his style. I think this is what he feels best at, what he feels most comfortable with. And let's not forget that earlier today, he did manage to pick up 2 wins. So I'm not sad that he opens up Stargate again.
Yeah.
But I do hope that he's a bit more decisive.
Yeah, I don't think it was the style overall that was the problem about the build order. It was just like the execution, some of the decisions along the way. It is kind of weird that he got as many upgrades as he did of the gateway unit, and then he barely ever made any. He like whopped in 10 stalkers that just dived for the Brulons, killed them, and then he never remade any gateway units. Like, he went for 3-3-3 on those units. By the way, Hero Marine was victorious against Neve.
Oh, wow.
So the Gatekeeper goes on to the playoffs.
I mean, that's great news, of course, for Gabe. I mean, he really solidifies himself as one of Europe's very, very best. Awesome result for him. Very sad for the American hero. The American champ now has fallen too. Right? Need one NA, right? Or am I making this up?
Are we gonna have 0 Protoss in the playoffs, Kev?
Well, if Nice falls hero against Rogue, then yes, Dot, we are gonna have 0 Protosses in the top 8. Doesn't mean you're on a break tomorrow.
And we got 5 Terrans, by the way. Okay, where's the Muslim? We gotta talk.
Got 2 adepts moving out. Been obviously in the previous games, Nice has been very passive with them. You see a 4th go down. Nice. What are we up to? Nice, not really revealing us too much yet. Let's see if he lets his change finish up. The answer is yes. First round goes down. He's like, hey, you made so many drones last game. I feel like you barely made any units. Oracle flies into the main base at the same time. That is adventurous Oracle movement, Johan.
Whew. Thought I was gonna fall. For a second, he does get out. And yeah, we have the second Stargate. Do you think he's gonna go pedal to the metal this time? Is he actually gonna go for the attack when he gets to the big army with the upgrades?
Yeah, I think at first obviously depends a bit what Rogue wants to do, because Rogue does have missile attacks on the way. And Neve was indeed our American champ, so a lot of champs of their regions actually already falling here in the group stages.
Yeah.
Well, we have a Robo going down, so it does seem like Nice wants to go into double Stargate, maybe a quick Robo Bay for safety, because obviously disruptors are the best possible unit if you are under pressure from Roaches and Queens. And then just go into more Stargate units, but then be a lot more decisive with them. Let's see if he can get a cancel. These are kind of big moments. Early today he was able to get a cancel with a single Void Ray. You can really see that Rogue has just kind of cleaned up the openings. Doesn't even break a sweat here.
I knew that was going to happen. Very well positioned at the time. That's the 3rd Stargate here already. I guess last game didn't deter Nice at all to go from this style again with the mass air, but you know, as a competitive player, as a pro gamer, you always have to think, what adjustments do I have to make? So you talk about the main one, which we could very easily see here because we're watching from an observer point of view and we see all of the numbers and everything. I really wonder what conclusion he has come to himself this time around in terms of just how to play it exactly, because you can fully expect Rogue to play it very similarly here, unless he wanted to go for an attack, but by the look of things, he's just adding a Spire right now. And yeah, clear reconstitution is on the way. There is actually a chance he goes for some Corruptors and then just attacks with Roach Corruptor, but he doesn't really have to do something like that. Like the one time he tried to play really aggressive in the first series, it didn't work out for him.
I mean, I think you might be onto something, Todd, because there's no Infestation Pit, still making these queens. And it may just be what Rogue Kills can get the job done. 79 drones. Oh, there is the Infestation Pit, though. We're gonna have the exact same game. I'm gonna go ham. I don't know if I can do that. +2 air weapons on the way. That's very early. 7 minutes and 30 seconds. Gonna chrono boost the hell out of it. I have the feeling that Nice does want to do the same thing, but he just wants to be a bit more decisive. He's like, Rogue, I feel the way that you play, I think I can punish it. Last game I didn't punish it. And Rogue basically just sits there and says, try me.
Yeah, Rogue, really like this decision here is for him to make. He scouted perfectly the third Stargate and the Fleet Beacon. He saw those as they were being built. So he has plenty of time to exactly decide how he wants to go about facing this. And the question is usually between all-out aggression, or at least sometime soon, and just fully turtling like we saw in the first map. I mean, that worked out so well in map 1, I can't think that he would want to play it necessarily any other way, especially on a map like this where it's going to be easier to like cover the map because you got less bases and stuff.
Maybe a cheeky snipe on that fourth base with all the Void Rays in the top left side. There are
Say hello to my little friends.
Yep, there are 2 queens here. They can transfuse this hatchery for a little bit, but that's obviously not going to be a match for all these Void Rays with Prismatic Alignment. They do have Flux Veins too, so he doesn't even... Oh, but now the Corruptor is going to try to intercept. The Corruptor's number is not quite high enough, though. He could recall, decides to recall. Will pay the price with only 1 Void Ray. I actually think if Rogue would have targeted the low HP Void Ray there, that could have been a second one too. That's nice though for Nice. That's more success than he found in the previous game.
Yeah, in terms of income, this definitely kicks Rogue down a notch, especially because that 5th base wasn't exactly super quick for him. And in terms of gas, that's the main thing. Like the gas is what's important here.
How insane is this? The man is flying 8 queens into the main base of Nice. 8 queens and Corruptors are gonna try to put a number on these targets. Carrier pops, carrier dies immediately. That's honestly an insane play. And yeah, Pure Void is gonna have a very hard time dealing with this. There is a Disruptor on the low ground, but it seems like it's having a lot of issues, making its way back into the main.
Yeah, and it's not just that the Queens are great at attacking here. They got transfusions for days as well to work with, as those Queens have quite a bit of energy. He takes out the Fleet Beacon, and he's now staging one of the Stargates. He's telling Nice, you have to engage it to me right now. One of the Stargates just comes out. I mean, he might as well not have come out at all, because it just evaporates instantly.
This is actually such a sick way to still get some value out of your queens, especially with this much energy, getting on top of the production. It seems like Nice, like, you know what, maybe you can take care of my main base. I don't want to lose my expensive units one by one. He just wants to get a second Disruptor out, because he knows that if he fires 1 Nova, they're all just going to heal each other up. So he wants to fire 2 Novas at a time, does get the triple kill on the queens. Yeah, losing the Fleet Beacon, losing all the Stargates. That's pretty disastrous if you ask me.
Oh, and Rogue saw that the Void Rays fully went away from that location, starts using Caustic Spray on the Nexus. Now he's going to force the fight against them. There is some shield batteries helping out here. Yeah. Corruptor's forced to move back. There's still 4 queens in position, helping out against this, but these Disruptors just reloaded here. They're Nova shot. There's it's always hard to tell as well exactly how many Corruptors there are, but he just knows that there's too many, more than he can fight. And Rogue finally going for the kill here. He's dealt a ton of damage. He sees that his Protoss army doesn't have the critical mass. He gets on top of this Void Race.
You gotta love it. Waiting for Prismatic Alignment to run out, and now he's not afraid, not intimidated by these shield batteries. Doesn't give a damn about a couple Stalkers.